For our class this week, we learned about landscapes, and we use wet on wet technique to do the landscapes, and we use brush control techniques to do some fine lines on top. And we're also doing some color mixing. So the first thing we're going to do is paint a landscape that has a sky and water. And so we're going to do the sky first. We don't want to do them at the same time because they'll bleed into each other. So as we do the sky, we first need to do a horizon line. We're only going to get the top portion wet. And I'm just using this big brush for speed. Your brush is going to work fine. So I've got my horizon line with water, and I also need a sun. And mine's not going to be super big. It's probably about the size of a dime, maybe smaller, that I'm just outlining in water. And everything else gets wet, but not the sun circle. Okay, so this top area is wet. I'm going to switch over to my brush that you guys have. I've got a round 6, and I'm using the slate blue. I really am going to water it down. And I'm going to just start doing some edges. I'm using horizontal strokes. Mine's going a little pink because I had some red in my brush, which is fine. That's how I'm going to hold it down. So I'm going to be doing my edges and just scrubbing in some paint, letting it move how it wants. This is just going to be a really pastel-y sunset type sky. I kind of like the pink is coming through. Okay. So we're going to be doing a lot of layers, and so it's okay if it is really, really light to start. That's what we want. Towards the bottom, I mixed a purple, and it's definitely on the blue side of purple. It doesn't look like it is, but it is. I used a lot of blue to make this, and that's just kind of what I want to be closer to my water. And then I've got my yellow, and I'm going to make it a little bit more orangey than it is alone. Just mixing a little bit of, I had pre-mixed some orange, and so I'm going to put a little bit of that orange in, really dilute that yellow, and it's gonna go by my sun circle, kind of like a halo type look. Then I'm gonna really, every color I'm using is super, super watered down. I wanna add some orange around there. Now my paper is drying, and that's okay. It's still moving how I want it to. I'm not getting hard lines, but it's not spreading the way it was at first. That's totally fine. That's probably all I'll do with the orange. And then I really like this red that I gave you in your kits, scarlet. And I'm just going to add it really lightly in a couple places. Now see here, it bled out more than I would want it to. I feel like the horizontal lines are going to communicate the clouds a little bit better. These ones are okay, but this one was too much of a blob. Now, I've lost some of my blues as it has dried. So I'm just going to add some blue, and that was pretty dry paper right there, and so I can just spread it out with water as I want. So the only strokes you should be using are horizontal. Otherwise, there's no way that these are going to look like clouds. They're just going to be messy blobs. I'm going to add a little bit more purple at the bottom, and then I'm going to leave that alone. Okay, so there's my sky. The next thing I'm going to do is the water, and I don't want it to bleed into what I have, so I am going to leave a really thin line. In between, and that will be covered up later, so that's okay. Okay, so I've got this area wet now, and I'm going to mirror what I have above, and it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to translate that this is a reflection. So the first thing I'm going to have are some purples. These are going to be a little bit more diluted than they are in the sky, and a little more messy. Okay, I'm going to add a tiny bit of my red. The very middle area should stay pretty darn light. It's just going to be a reflection of the sun. So I've got a little bit of yellow in there, and I'll add a little bit of orange. But I'm pretty much going to leave it like that. Okay, and then I just need to add my blues. Okay, I like that. I think that I will probably leave that as it is. Okay, now we just have to let it dry to be able to do the next step. So my paper is pretty dry now, and the first thing I'm going to do is add some mountains right across my horizon line. So I've got kind of a large gap here. So I'm going to go across the top line of it though, and I'll show you how I can blend that all in. Uh-oh. That's all right. I've got a little pool of water right there. Okay. Oh, and I didn't tell you, this is my mixture. I mixed this black, and it's not going very black right now, so I will go back and darken it. But if you don't remember how to do that, you've got your three colors, and you need to use blue first, then red, then yellow. And I'm going to switch to my smaller brush. Okay, so I added more blue to my mixture. I'm going to leave that alone. If I mess with it right now, it's going to get really messy. So I'm just going to turn that into a larger mountain. after it's dry. All right, so I've got my line, but I definitely don't want it to be even all the way across. So I'm going to, these aren't huge mountains, but I'm going to add some variation up here. I like it to be pretty thin in the middle. Just let those end up however they do. That's fine. And again, I'm leaving that for a bit. I'll come back and do that. So the next thing I'm going to do is add some branches like a tree is in our view. And the best way for me to do that, because I'm left-handed, I'm having them come from the right side. Because I'm right-handed, I'm having them come from that side. So it's easier for me to move this way. So I'm just going to pick a place for them to start. I need to add some orange. I've got a lot of blue in that black. Let's see if that helped. Okay, but this needs to be super, super light pressure here. Now, I think it looks really good when we frame the sun. So we're going to have some branches that kind of dip into it a little bit. Okay, so there are my branches. Now, they don't look very good yet. Number one, they're not dark enough. But number two, I'm going to be adding all these little shoots off of them. And what I have found is that if you start on the base, or you start here, wherever the branch is going to be thicker, then you can taper off your lines a little bit easier. You can kind of, lift to make that a really nice point. And I'll probably turn this back around so that it's easier for me to work with. But I'm going to speed this part up so that you can just watch a quick overview of what I do. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do, I'm going to muddy this up a little bit. I just have a little bit of water on my brush, and as I muddy it up, it just looks like a little bit of reflection that we're getting from these mountains. It needs to be really, really subtle, but that stark line, I don't like it. So these need to also be very horizontal strokes because this is the water. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to leave it like that. So this is the first part of our lesson, but I have a whole bunch of different landscapes that I've painted, and I just passed them out to everyone, and they each just took one and tried to imitate it. So I'm going to send you guys the pictures of all of them, and I hope that you have time to do at least 3. 3 is my hope, including this one. And then you can bring them next week and show us. That's it.